If you own a PlayStation and you haven't played these 19 games, I need you to understand something. You're wasting your console. I'm not talking about, oh, these are pretty good games. I'm talking about the kind of games that justify spending $500 on a piece of hardware. The games that remind you why PlayStation keeps winning generation after generation. I've spent the last decade playing everything PlayStation has released on PS4 and PS5, and I've narrowed it down to 19 games that are so essential, so unforgettable, that skipping them feels like a genuine mistake. Some of these are obvious, some will surprise you, but every single one of them will make you question how you've been spending your gaming time. Before we start though, I need to know, which PlayStation game changed gaming for you? Drop a comment right now because I actually read every single one, and I want to know if we're on the same page or if you think I've lost my mind. So tell me, what's the one PlayStation? This game got unfairly dismissed at launch, and that's a tragedy because it became something special. You're Deacon St. John, a drifter biker in post-apocalyptic Oregon fighting freakers, fast, aggressive zombies that hunt in hordes. The story starts slow, but by the end, it's genuinely affecting. Deacon's relationship with his wife Sarah is the emotional core, and the game earns every beat. The writing treats its characters with respect instead of just using them as quest givers. The hordes are the highlight. You're fighting swarms of hundreds of freakers using traps, environmental kills, and sheer firepower. The first horde encounter is terrifying. By the end, you're hunting them for resources, and it feels earned. Your motorcycle is your lifeline. You maintain it, upgrade it, customize it. Running out of gas in the wilderness with a horde nearby is pure panic. The open world is gorgeous. Oregon's forests, mountains, and abandoned towns are beautifully rendered. Weather affects gameplay. Rain makes freakers more aggressive, snow slows your bike. And the post-launch updates fix most technical issues and added content. This deserved better than it got, and if you skipped it because of reviews, give it a chance. You're controlling 8 teenagers in a remote cabin, and all of them can die permanently, or all of them can survive. Your call. This is an interactive horror movie where the butterfly effect actually matters. Characters can die in Chapter 1 and the story continues without them, or you can save everyone. There are hundreds of branching paths based on choices and quick time events. The don't move sections, where you have to hold the controller perfectly still, are genuinely tense. One twitch and someone dies. The horror is effective. The first half is slasher movie tension, someone's hunting the group and you don't know who. The second half goes completely off the rails into different horror territory that I won't spoil. The mocap performances are great. Rami Malek before Mr. Robot, Hayden Panettiere, Brett Dalton, they sell the terror. Replaying to see different outcomes is addictive. You'll want to go back and make different choices, save different people, explore alternate paths. The PS5 version has better performance and faster loading, which makes replays less painful. If you like horror or choice-driven narratives, this is essential. This isn't a tech demo. This is a full 15-hour platformer that reminds you why you fell in love with games in the first place. Every level introduces new mechanics. One level, you're using the adaptive triggers to pull platforms. The next, you're using motion controls to aim. Then you're riding a giant dog through space while dodging asteroids. The creativity never stops. There are 80+ levels across 6 worlds, and each one explores its theme in ways that feel fresh. The level design is masterclass. Boss fights are spectacular. Collectibles are PlayStation cameos. You're rescuing bots dressed as Kratos, Aloy, Nathan Drake, and dozens of other characters. It's a love letter to PlayStation history wrapped in pure platforming excellence. The DualSense integration is the best in any game. You feel raindrops individually, you feel wind direction, you feel different surfaces through haptics. The controller becomes part of the experience. And the game is pure joy. No violence, no cynicism, just creative platforming and charm. This is what happens when developers understand that fun is timeless. This is where Souls began, and Bluepoint made it the best-looking game on PS5. Before Dark Souls, before Bloodborne, before Elden Ring, there was Demon Souls. The remake doesn't change the gameplay. It's still methodical, punishing, and unforgiving. You're exploring Boletaria, learning enemy patterns, dying constantly, and slowly mastering the game's systems. World Tendency adds strategic depth. Dying in body form makes areas harder but improves loot. The visual upgrade is transformative. The Tower of Latria is hauntingly beautiful and deeply unsettling. Flame Lorker's arena looks like the inside of a volcano. The armor designs, the spell effects, the lighting, it's all phenomenal. The DualSense makes you feel every sword clash. The 3D audio lets you hear enemies around corners. Bluepoint added quality of life improvements without changing the core experience. Omnidirectional rolling, item sending, better frame rate options, and it runs at 60 FPS in performance mode, which makes the combat feel smoother than the original ever did. If you're a Souls fan and somehow skipped this, you're missing the foundation of everything that came after. This isn't a remake, it's a reimagining that respects the original while doing its own thing. Midgar, the first 5 hours of the 1997 game, is now a 40-hour epic. Cloud, Tifa, Barret, Aerith all get full character arcs that didn't exist in the original. The slums feel alive, the plate feels oppressive, the Sector 7 pillar collapse hits harder because you spent 10 hours with those people, and the story takes unexpected turns that make even veterans question what's coming next. Combat is real-time action with tactical pause. You're switching between party members, exploiting weaknesses, building ATB gauge to use abilities. Boss fights are set pieces. The Airbuster encounter alone is a 15-minute spectacle with multiple phases and environmental mechanics. Hard mode completely changes how you approach fights by removing items and MP regeneration. The music is iconic Final Fantasy tracks reimagined with full orchestration. One Winged Angel, Aerith's team, the battle music, they're all here and better than ever. If you played FF7 in 1997, this will hit you with nostalgia and surprise in equal measure. If you never played the original, this is a fantastic entry point. Forget everything you know about Ratchet and Clank. Ripped Apart is a technical marvel that also happens to be pure joy. The dimension hopping is absurd. You're rifting between worlds mid-combat with zero loading. 1 second you're in a neon cyberpunk city, the next you're in a pirate dimension fighting robot parrots. The SSD makes this possible. You're jumping between entirely different levels seamlessly. There's a sequence where you're platforming through portals that swap dimensions every 3 seconds, and it's one of the most visually impressive things I've seen in gaming. The weapon variety is classic Ratchet chaos. Burst Pistol for precision, Shatter Bomb for AoE, Lightning Rod for chain damage, Negatron Collider for deleting everything. Upgrading weapons changes how they function, and experimenting with loadouts is half the fun. Rivet plays like Ratchet but has her own story and personality that makes her feel essential, not tacked on. The visuals are Pixar quality. Ray tracing, particle effects, and action density are off the charts. The DualSense makes every weapon feel unique through haptics. This is what next-gen actually means. Not just better graphics, but gameplay that couldn't exist on older hardware. The first time you die and realize you're losing an hour of progress, you'll want to throw the controller. By hour 10, you'll be chasing that feeling. Celine crashes on a hostile alien planet stuck in a time loop. Every death resets the world. The only way forward is to keep pushing into harder biomes with better gear and more knowledge. The story is told through audio logs and environmental clues that get increasingly disturbing. You're finding recordings of yourself from previous loops, and the game blurs the line between the alien planet and Celine's own trauma. Combat is bullet hell meets third-person shooter. Every gun has 2 fire modes, one on L2, one on R2, and the adaptive triggers give different resistance for each. You're dash jumping through waves of projectiles like it's a 3D shoot-'em-up, and when you're in flow state, it's transcendent. Boss fights are multi-phase spectacles that will destroy you until you learn the patterns. The roguelike loop is brutal but fair. You can lose everything, but you keep permanent unlocks. Each run makes you better, and when you finally clear a biome after 15 attempts, the rush is unmatched. The PS5's SSD means death loads instantly, so failure doesn't feel like punishment, just another attempt. This is the best use of the DualSense controller on PS5. This is what a great sequel looks like. Shorter, tighter, no filler, all highlights. Miles plays different than Peter. Venom powers let you charge attacks with bioelectricity and create AoE shocks that clear crowds. Camouflage makes stealth easier, but also opens combat opportunities. Go invisible, reposition, ambush. The web swinging through snow-covered Harlem in winter is gorgeous, and the story is personal. Miles is protecting his neighborhood from a corporate war, and the stakes feel grounded. The campaign is 8 to 10 hours. No bloat. Just a focused story with spectacular moments. The bridge collapse is one of the most visually impressive sequences on PS5. You're catching falling debris, saving civilians, and the DualSense makes you feel the strain in Miles' hands. The electricity crackles through the controller. Web swinging has haptic feedback for every swing. The PS5 version has performance mode at 60 FPS with ray tracing, which shouldn't be possible but looks incredible. Fast travel takes 2 seconds thanks to the SSD. This is a technical showcase that also happens to be a great game about a younger, less experienced Spider-Man finding his identity outside Peter's shadow. You spend the entire game climbing 16 giant creatures and stabbing them in glowing weak points. That's it, that's the whole game. It's a masterpiece. There are no towns, no NPCs, no side quests, just you, your horse Agro, and Colossi wandering a forbidden land. Each fight is a puzzle. Figure out how to climb the creature while it tries to shake you off, find the weak point, stab. Some walk through lakes, some fly, some burrow underground. The scale is breathtaking every single time. The minimalism is intentional. The isolation is the point. And as you kill more Colossi, the emotional weight builds. These aren't evil monsters, they're just living in this land, and you're the invader. The game asks questions about heroism and sacrifice without ever spelling it out. The story is told through visuals and music, not dialogue. Bluepoint's remake doesn't change the game, it just makes it photorealistic. The lighting is stunning, the fur on the Colossi moves realistically, the environments look like concept art brought to life, and the photo mode is incredible. This is what it looks like when a team understands that some games are already perfect and just need a fresh coat of paint. Nathan Drake deserved the perfect send-off. He got one. This is treasure hunting at its peak. Madagascar car chases, Scottish castle infiltrations, and a lost pirate colony that feels like a playable Indiana Jones film. The set pieces are absurd. There's a chase through crowded streets that's pure blockbuster chaos. The rope mechanic adds verticality to gunfights and platforming, and the environmental puzzles feel clever without being frustrating. But the real achievement is the story. Nathan is retired, living a normal life of Elena, and then his brother Sam drags him into one last job. The game asks whether you can truly leave adventure behind, what obsession costs, and whether redemption is even possible. The relationship between Nathan and Elena is written with maturity you don't see in games. They argue like real people. They forgive like real people. The ending is perfect. It gives Nathan closure without betraying who he is. The epilogue will make you smile. And if you want more, The Lost Legacy with Chloe and Nadine is a shorter standalone that's also excellent. This is how you end a franchise. The original was perfect in 2013. The remake proves it's timeless. Joel and Ellie's journey across a fungal-infected America is still one of gaming's greatest stories. The remake doesn't change the narrative, it just makes everything look and feel like it was made for PS5. Facial animations are stunning now. You can see micro-expressions during emotional scenes. Combat AI is smarter. Enemies flank, communicate, adapt to your tactics. The DualSense makes every gunshot feel weighty. The accessibility options are industry-leading. You can customize difficulty sliders individually, adjust aim assist, enable audio cues for stealth, and tweak dozens of settings. This is how every game should handle accessibility. The 3D audio makes you hear infected clicking in the darkness, and it's terrifying in the best way. If you've never played The Last of Us, start here. If you played it on PS3 or PS4, the remake is still worth experiencing for the technical leap alone. This is one of those rare stories that justifies the games as art argument, and now it's presented with visuals that match the writing. Persona 5 Royal takes 120 hours to beat, worth every single minute. You're a high school student in Tokyo who discovers the power to enter people's minds and change their hearts. Days are split between normal teenage life, going to school, building relationships, working part-time jobs, and infiltrating palaces, which are surreal dungeons representing corrupt desires. The loop of managing stats during the day and dungeon crawling at night is absurdly addictive. The story targets abusers of power, predatory teachers, mob bosses, corrupt politicians. Each palace represents a different societal problem, and the game doesn't pull punches with its social commentary. The Phantom Thieves are all dealing with trauma, abuse, exploitation, parental pressure, and every character gets a full arc. The Confidant system lets you form relationships with dozens of NPCs across Tokyo, and the side stories are sometimes better than the main plot. Royal adds an entire third semester with Kasumi, a new Phantom Thief whose story reframes the entire game. The new ending is better than the original. The art direction is stylish as hell, menus have personality, battle animations pop, and the UI design alone is worth studying. The soundtrack is iconic. Last Surprise will live in your head forever. If you've never played a JRPG, this is the one that'll convert you. The web swinging alone justifies the price, and then the rest of the game is excellent too. Moving through Manhattan is pure joy. You're building momentum off skyscrapers, swinging through traffic, and the physics feel perfect. Fast travel exists, but you'll never use it because traversal is that good. Then the combat layers on top. It's built on the Arkham foundation, but faster and more improvisational. You're webbing enemies to walls, yanking weapons, launching into aerial combos, and the gadget variety keeps every fight dynamic. Peter Parker is an experienced Spider-Man here, which means the story can skip the origin and jump into real stakes. He's dealing with relationship problems, financial stress, and a mentor-turned-villain in Otto Octavius. The boss fights against the Sinister Six are spectacular set pieces, and there's a late-game choice involving Aunt May that's genuinely heartbreaking, because the game earned that emotional weight over 20 hours. Side content is strong. Stopping crimes feels good because the combat is good. Collecting backpacks gives you pieces of Peter's history. Taking photos of landmarks is actually relaxing. The 3 DLC chapters add more story with Black Cat and new villains, and they're worth playing if you want more time in this version of New York. You're hunting robot dinosaurs with a bow in post-apocalyptic Colorado, and the mystery of why might be the best sci-fi story PlayStation's ever told. Aloy's searching for answers about her past in a world overrun by machines. The setup sounds simple, but the mystery unravels into a story about extinction, AI gone wrong, and whether humanity deserved to survive its own mistakes. I won't spoil the reveals, but the final hours hit harder than most prestige sci-fi films. The writing treats its themes with respect instead of just using them as set dressing. Combat is preparation and execution. Every machine has weak points tied to elemental damage. Thunderjaws have disc launchers, radar systems, and heart components you can target. You're crafting ammo types for specific encounters, laying traps, and using the environment. When you tear off a disc launcher and turn it against the machine, it's one of the most satisfying loops in any action game. The world is gorgeous. You're exploring Denver ruins overgrown with nature, Monument Valley transformed by machines, and underground bunkers that tell the story of the old world. Environmental storytelling through holograms and data points fills in what happened, and it's worth reading every scrap. The Frozen Wilds DLC adds an entire new region with upgraded visuals and tougher machines. Don't skip it. I've never felt more like an actual samurai than when I'm standing in a field challenging Mongols to duels. You're Jin Sakai during the first Mongol invasion of Japan, and the central tension is powerful. Fight with honor and lose, or abandon the samurai code and become the ghost. The game doesn't present this as a clear hero's journey. NPCs fear you when you use ghost tactics. Your uncle calls you a disgrace. The weight of that choice is real, even if the gameplay doesn't force you to commit to one path. Standoffs let you challenge enemies to one-on-one duels where a single perfectly timed strike ends the fight. The sword combat is precise, parries, perfect dodges, and stance switching based on enemy type. But then you have kunai, smoke bombs, poison darts, and assassination chains that feel effective but dishonorable. The contrast is intentional. Tsushima itself is one of the most beautiful open worlds ever made. Wind guides you to objectives instead of UI workers. You can ride through fields of flowers, compose haiku at scenic overlooks, and just exist in a world that feels reverent toward Japanese culture. The director's cut adds Iki Island, which digs into Jin's trauma and makes his character even stronger. This is how you make a samurai game that respects the source material. If you've only played Elden Ring, you haven't experienced FromSoft at their most aggressive. There are no shields here. Defense is offense. You regain health by attacking immediately after taking damage, which turns every fight into a risk-reward calculation. Do you back off and heal, or do you push forward and earn that health back? The combat flows around dodges, gun parries, and trick weapons that transform mid-combo. The saw cleaver shifts between fast slashes and heavy two-handed strikes. The threaded cane is a whip that becomes a bladed cane. Learning when to transform mid-fight is half the skill ceiling. Yharnam is a gothic nightmare that descends into Lovecraftian madness the deeper you go. The game doesn't explain its story, you piece it together through item descriptions and environmental design. The Old Hunters DLC has some of the best bosses FromSoft has ever made. Ludwig is a tragic nightmare. Orphan of Kos will break you repeatedly until you learn its rhythm. Lady Maria is a duel that feels like a dance. The atmosphere is oppressive. The 3D audio makes you hear enemies before you see them. When you finally beat a boss after 20 tries, the relief is physical. This is FromSoft at their peak, and nothing else they've made feels quite like it. The father-son story from 2018 was great. This one's better, and the ending will wreck you. Atreus is a teenager now. That means rebellion, questions, and a desperate need to figure out who he is outside his father's shadow. The game lets you play as him during key moments in Asgard, making choices without Kratos there to guide you. And it's when you realize he's not a kid anymore. The tension between them feels real because the writing doesn't take shortcuts. Combat adds the Blades of Chaos from the start, so you're switching between ice and fire mid-combo. The Thor fight in the opening is one of the best bosses in PlayStation history. You're trading blows with a god in your own front yard, and the screen shakes with every impact. Then the final boss ties 20 years of God of War lore together in a way that's both massive and intimate. The 9 realms are fully open now, with instant travel between them. Vanaheim has jungles and ruins, Svartalfheim has industrial dwarven cities. Each realm feels distinct and packed with meaningful content, not just collectible busywork. This is how you end a saga. In 2018, Santa Monica did the impossible. They made Kratos a father, and it actually worked. This isn't the old God of War. No button-mashing spectacle, no quick-time events. This is slower, heavier, more deliberate. The Leviathan axe throws and recalls with a satisfying thunk that the DualSense makes feel incredible. Combat relies on spacing, timing, and knowing when to recall your axe mid-fight to freeze an enemy charging from behind. When it clicks, it's poetry. But the story is why this game matters. Kratos is raising a son while running from a past full of violence and regret. The entire game is one continuous camera shot. No cuts, no loading screens. You're traveling through Norse realms, fighting gods, solving puzzles, and watching a damaged man try to be better for his kid. The stranger fight at the beginning sets the tone perfectly. It's brutal, personal, and ends with a question mark that hangs over the entire game. If you think narrative-driven action games peaked with Uncharted, this will change your mind. This game split the internet in half, and I need to tell you why it's worth playing anyway. The controversy is real. You spend the first half hunting down the people who wronged Ellie, fully invested in her revenge, and then the game forces you to play as Abby for 10 hours, the person you've been trying to kill, and you hate it at first. But the writing earns that perspective shift. By the end, you understand both sides of a conflict where nobody's a hero, just broken people making impossible choices in a world that's already destroyed. The combat refines everything from the first game. Stealth feels brutal and desperate. There's a flooded subway where infected and human enemies start fighting each other, and you're using the chaos just to survive. The museum flashback with Ellie and Joel has zero combat for 2 hours, and it's some of the best content in gaming. And the motion capture performances are so good, you forget you're watching polygons. By the end, it doesn't matter if you agree with the story choices. You've lived through something that stays with you. That's more than most games even attempt. And that's the list. 19 PlayStation games that are so good, skipping them feels like wasting your console. Some are obvious: God of War, The Last of Us, Bloodborne. Some are slept on: Days Gone, Until Dawn, Astro, but every single one of them delivers something you can't get anywhere else. Now I want to hear from you. Which game on this list changed gaming for you? Which one are you shocked I included? And which essential PlayStation game did I completely miss? Drop a comment because I read every single one, and I genuinely want to know your take. If this video convinced you to finally play one of these games, hit subscribe. If it made you realize your backlog is out of control, smash that like button so we can panic together. Next up, I'm breaking down the PlayStation games you should absolutely wait for a sale on, because not everything deserves $70, even when it's good. Catch you in the comments. Let's talk about which of these games hit you the hardest.